Okay, so I'll carry on. I hope Lebo, when you can, just speak and we'll see if you're back on. Yeah, so this evening, what we wanted to really focus on is really this theme around empowerment and what do we mean by empowerment, and just engage on this topic. What do we mean by power? Because I think in some ways, when we look at this whole issue around violence and fear, it is about the interplay of power, power in the way we hold it within ourselves, but also in terms of the power play within our relationships and things like that. So I would like to start off, and I've put in the chat a little link that if you could go onto it and just click on it. And I think the first thing that we would like to just start off with is really to look at the subject about what do we feel is the opposite of fear. And so just go onto that link and see if you can just put in a few words, or if you're not comfortable doing that, just share it out. What do you feel is the opposite of fear? You can even unmute yourself and say that, because it's interesting when we begin to unpack, instead of knowing what we don't want, but what is it that we do want, and how do we explore that aspect. So what do you feel is the opposite of fear? So if you're not comfortable to go into the link, then please just do share through the chat, or just through unmute yourself and share. I'd like to get some input from all of you. Anyone? What is the opposite of fear? Someone put their trust. Excellent. Bianca put trust. The opposite of fear is trust. Lovely.
Hi, Pratiba.
Hi. Come through.
Well, for me, it is love.
Love, yeah, beautiful. Opposite of fear is love. I remember an expression: love and fear cannot eat from the same plate. So it's a lovely connection that opposite to fear is love, right? I see someone put faith or hope. Faith, power. The opposite of fear is power, safety, comfort, security. Beautiful. Okay, great. Okay. Lebo, any luck? Can you say something? We can see if we can hear you. Okay. Okay, I think Lebo's having problems with the mic today. That's a pity. Okay, so what we're going to go into as we begin to look at what do we mean by what do we mean the opposite? Do we feel is the opposite of fear? And it's interesting that it takes us into these positive qualities of safety and aspects like that. But I want to now start off by really looking at this whole theme around what is spiritual power. And I think in a way, when we begin to unpack this concept of what is spiritual power, then it helps us to really begin to recognize and see that when we connect with that innate power, that's when we begin to see that it changes the dynamic in the way we hold ourselves, and the dynamic in terms of how we engage and express with other people too. So Lebo had interviewed two of her work colleagues, And just as a starting point into our discussion, we're going to look at what their take was on power. And so I'm going to just play that. It's a short little video just to give us an idea of some of the thoughts that are out there about what is.
The question that I have for you today is, what do you think women power is?
I think that the power of my femininity as a woman, I've recently learned in the last few years, is the power of understanding my worth. I think that's how I personally have gotten myself in certain situations that maybe I shouldn't have gotten myself into. And when I look back at it now, it was because I didn't have a sense of self-worth. And now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, I think that's where the power lies. When you realize that there are certain things that you deserve, that you are worthy of a certain level and standard of love, pay, respect, you at the beginning of any kind of decline of that respect, of that standard that you want, you're going to already reject whatever might come after that. So I'll give you an example of something really small. If I ordered something without ice, I used to be the type of person that if I got it with ice, I would just let it go. And what I've learned is that's the beginning of me faltering and letting myself down. So now I sort of take stands and just, not even just, I'm talking about at the smallest level, taking a stand and understanding that no, whatever it is that you think you are worth, holding yourself in a high value. For an example, in a relationship, if I feel as though, oh my goodness, I'll never find this person again, can be an example, then I put myself in a position where I will take anything from this person. I will take, whether it's being sworn at, whether it's being abused, whether it's being neglected, I will take whatever because I'm so afraid that I am not worthy of something better. So for me, my power comes from knowing my worth.
Oh, that's so powerful. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you, Lebo.
What advice would you give a young woman like yourself for them to realize the kind of power that they have in themselves?
So my advice would be not specifically young women, but women as a whole, is to not be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to leave that 10-year relationship just because you feel you have nothing to go on. Leave that relationship, empower yourself, educate yourself, and leave that relationship. Don't be afraid to leave because you're not going to change him. He's not going to change. I mean, you've been with him for how many years? Has he changed? So we have the power as women to start over and to educate ourselves and to empower ourselves. Get that power, we have so much power in ourselves. You just need to find it somewhere in yourself too. Women possess so much power. I mean, we give birth. After giving birth, we are able to go back to work. So we have it in us. We just need to find it in ourselves to have it. So it is possible. I mean, it's difficult. Obviously, I can imagine being in a 20-year relationship, but it's possible. So my advice to women would be just don't be afraid to start over. Take that first step. It's possible.
Take that first step.
Take that first step.
Thank you, Lerato. I think this book is going to go a long way.
Yeah.
Take that first step.
Don't be afraid to take that first step.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lerato.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Alrighty. Thank you.
So yeah, two short little clips of women out there and what they feel, where their power lies. And I think two things that are very key. One is it really starts with us reclaiming ourselves and building self-respect and recognizing our own individual worth. And that's quite a journey actually, because I think there's been so many influences that has been programmed in us thinking of ourselves as individuals as being less. So where does self-worth begin, and where does that process of restoring my sense of self really begin? And so what I would like to now begin to look at, and that really is that if we begin to look at our sense of self-worth, then where does it begin? And the first place it really begins is really recognizing who I am. And a lot of it is very much connected and linked with our sense of identity. Identity plays such an important role. When we begin to really recognize who I am and what I am, then we begin to break through these barriers of these programs that we have in some ways begun to adopt upon ourselves. So whether it is being told that you are a girl so you can do this and you can't do that, or whether it is told because of race or because of religion or culture influences, all of these things have begun to create a sense of identity. And that identity is really a acquired identity that's based on influences. And I often find that we can intellectually know that these things don't really apply, but it does take a continuous reflection within and a continuous checking within to see that I haven't embraced that identity at a very deep subconscious level. And sometimes it's things that I may not have been told, but just the way I've watched of how women around me have responded to things around. So I sometimes develop that identity based on the people around me as I've absorbed a kind of a cultural way of looking at ourselves. And so in my own personal experience, what I have found is that even if there's just one woman that actually stands out and has her own voice, it gives permission for others to also find their own voice in that regard. So the first aspect of identity is important, and something that Daddy Janki had once shared, which stays with me on a very deep level, that when we explore the subject of identity, it is also about going beyond the identity of seeing myself as a woman, but almost seeing myself in that deeper essence of being a divine creation. Because even just putting myself in that category of women has so much of baggage in a way, has so much of influence in a way. But when I can almost break through from that limited identity, I begin to tap into a deeper sense of self that doesn't have to be confined by the programming of my surrounding. So working deeply on the sense of identity, and I find one is, yes, the understanding of myself as a soul, the understanding of myself as consciousness, that plays such an important role. But on another level, what I also begin to see is also beginning to see that how I need to begin to ask myself and tap into the deeper qualities and principles of who I am. And I find that is something, personal work, that I have to do, that I have to take time to explore in myself what are my deeper principles and my deeper values that I want as a guideline for who and what I am. And until I don't do that deeper work of identifying that, I will always be at the mercy and influenced by things around me. So self-worth first begins by really creating that awareness of who I am and what I am, and what are my deeper qualities or principles internally. Because that's what begins to create that foundation for myself. Lebo, are you online now? No, you're still muted. We cannot hear you. Sorry. Okay, so power comes from that. For me, that's the first step of really creating that internal identity. The second step that I feel that plays a significant role of building my self-worth as well is one, it's good to identify what I feel are my deeper principles and qualities. But I really can only deeply respect myself when I really am committed to living those values and principles, irrespective of the challenge that I do find myself facing. Because unless I really act on what I believe in or what I feel is of value, only then can I really build self-trust. And for me, it's that self-trust that then leads to a sense of self-respect. And it's almost like what begins to happen in that process, that when I know that I can trust myself because what I commit to in me, I play that out, then it builds that internal trust. But then with that comes this kind of a capacity that begins to emerge of showing up and standing my ground with dignity. And I think that's the connection, that when there's self-trust, then there is that self-respect, and then I can stand with dignity, irrespective of the challenge that I do find. So those are key things. And when I have that kind of a sense of self and that sense of self-worth in that regard, I think what happens then is then I'm able to create healthy boundaries. And I find the subject of healthy boundaries a very important one, because there's always been sometimes this question of where does tolerance play a role, and where does healthy boundaries play a role, and sometimes it gets a bit blurred. I remember a quotation from Daddy Janki, which left a profound impact for me. But Daddy said, I would never oppress, suppress, or repress anyone. I hold each one as an individual, each one as a child of God. That's my vision and attitude, each one worthy of my respect. But equally in the same breath, I will never let anyone oppress, suppress, or repress me. And I think that's the key thing, that when I am clear about who and what I am, then not only do I stand in my own dignity, with clarity, with faith, with respect, but I'm also able to hold the other with that vision of dignity and self-respect. So for me, that is power in a way. But when I am holding another with that kind of self-respect, then part of that is also creating these healthy boundaries. And I think healthy boundaries, understanding what they are, is important. One key insight that I had, which helped me personally in being able to establish healthy boundaries, that was really this awareness that when I create a healthy boundary, it is not coming from a place of fear, but it is coming from a place of recognizing my own worth and my own respect for myself. But also that boundary is also about recognizing the worth and and respect for the other. Because allowing someone else to behave in a way that's less than what their divine nature is in some ways a form of disrespect to the other as well. So when I say no to something, it's not that I'm not being tolerant, but it's because I know you are worth something better and bigger. And this doesn't show that kind of worth of who you are as an individual. So my engagement is saying that I see you, that you're worth something more than what I'm seeing being expressed here. So when it clicked in me in a way that healthy boundaries serve me and it serves the other just as much, it became a lot easier for me to recognize and understand that I'm not creating healthy boundaries from a place of fear, but that the boundary is created from a place of respect. And I think, in a way, I was having a discussion recently with one of our sisters who was quite involved in the COP conference from the BK perspective. And one of the things that came through in that discussion was that even when we look that the whole aspect of climate and the whole aspect of our engagement with the world around us, it is about relationship, and it is about restoring healthy relationships, and it is about respecting the spaces that we have, and how we give space to each other as well. So for me, power is really about acknowledging and holding respect for my own space, but also respect for the space of the other and not transgressing that space. So we even see it that with nature as well, that when we recognize and value that nature has a right to its space, and when we engage with that level of respect for all life, then we begin to build harmony in that regard. So power has a deep connection with this aspect of recognizing space and recognizing in how we hold space and how we respect each other's space in that regard. Going forward, it's also about understanding this dynamic of power, self-worth, self-respect, creating healthy boundaries as well. It's also about now looking at recognizing this, developing this spiritual awareness within ourselves so that we can really begin to fine tune for ourselves this fine line between what I like calling the dance of being on the dance floor, and when it is necessary to be on the balcony. It's a lovely expression that I heard a few years ago, an expression that was shared by someone called Benjamin Zander. But when I can hold myself in self-respect, then I will know moments when I need to be fully engaged and moments when I step out of being fully engaged and I become the observer. And that is also, I find, a way of knowing when to steer something, knowing when to fully be part of something, and knowing when to observe and allow things. Because sometimes in that observation and allowing of things is also a form of showing respect and a form of allowing growth as it needs to. Many of us, I think, what blurs that boundary is when we feel we need to fix everything and we take on responsibilities upon us that are not necessarily our responsibilities. And so learning to recognize this difference in a way is also a way of establishing a healthy boundary. And it is also about allowing a good, healthy exchange of power in that regard as well. So these are some of the thoughts around that aspect. I want to just show another short little clip that I have of something that Sister Jayanti shared, and then I'm going to open it up to the floor for us to begin to explore the subject further.
I wonder if there's a moment when, if I'm suffering, can I find a way not to suffer? And if I'm not able to do that, if I'm not able to accept the situation, acceptance is also a big part of forgiving. And so if I'm not able to accept the person or the situation, am I able to have the courage to say, can I do something differently? Can I make a shift and a change in my life? And if I'm unwilling to do that, and I'm unable to make the shift inside and accept, then I have to ask, why am I choosing to be a victim? And my understanding of that is also something that wouldn't be very popular when people hear it. It's because even though somebody is an oppressor, there's still something I'm taking from them, and this is why I'm allowing things to carry on. And so spirituality means being able to go inside and really see with honesty in the mirror of my heart what's going on. Why am I choosing to stay a victim? Can I change my attitude? Can I change my situation? Spirituality starts making me look at things in a very profound way. And yes, people who, especially within a family situation, start understanding these things together, they are never bored. There's always very rich material for discussion.
That's a lovely clip by Sister Jayanti, and I think the key things that she offers really is, twofold. To ask myself, firstly, what is it that I need to change? And I think very often the way we shift out of situations, etc., it always has to begin with ourselves first. And whether it is acceptance, whether it is change of attitude, whether it is reclaiming myself, whether it is finding courage, what is it that in me I have to shift? And in some ways I like also looking at it is, what story have I been telling myself for so long? And is there another narrative, a healthier narrative that I need to embark on? And so that first responsibility is something that I have to take cognizance of and begin to work with. So I think in some ways the spiritual journey is about looking at that internal story that I'm telling myself. And that's why I began that. It really starts off with redefining myself and going beyond the labels I've created of myself and really connecting with a deep sense of self-worth in that regard. And the second aspect that I think which is important to say, that sometimes how we don't make the shifts that we know we should, because without realizing I'm taking from the situation. And our taking could be in many different ways. Sometimes in a way that it's easier to play the victim rather than actually to find the courage to say, I think as Toko shared in her little talk, educate yourself, seek out help, take that first step. And in some ways, it is scary for people when you engage in a relationship that can be quite oppressive. But, that one step of courage, and then suddenly you do find a million other steps, a million other opportunities opening up for you. So it does take that one particular step to say, this is not the place where I want to be, and this is not the way it has to be. there is a different way, and let me take that one step. So I particularly liked those two aspects of what Sister Jayanti shared. And so what I want to really begin to look at is some practices that are important. And as I said, the first step is always to begin to reflect on the self and building true self-respect, which is important. And for that, as I said, one is take time to ask yourself and recognize for yourself, who am I, and what is it that is important and of value to me. And hold yourself to that. Hold yourself to what you feel is important. A simple example that I find is also it has a ripple effect. But if my health is important to me, then I need to see how committed am I to that. And it's not about doing extreme diets and things like that, but it's about the choices I make in everyday living that begins to reflect how I relate to myself. So I find that I can, as I said, that when I commit to something and I act it out, then I build that self-trust, which then leads to self-respect. So how committed am I to the things that I do express as being valuable and important? And then the second aspect that I find that is also very key, and I think Jackie had shared, the opposite of fear is love. And I think ultimately it's love for the self, but also love for the self is deeply rooted in a way of experiencing love, a connection with the divine, with that higher source. Very early in my journey, there was a lovely experience when I went for a retreat. And it was at our retreat center in Oxford, a beautiful space that we have there. And during this retreat, one of the things that became very clear for me, in a sense, was that when you're in an environment like that and you experience a sense of acceptance, a sense of just value for who you are, and especially it was a meditation retreat, so it was very lovely. The atmosphere was very conducive, and Daddy Janki was there, so it was really a deeply profound experience of love. And the feeling really was that, to really develop a sense of self-love, it is a deep journey, because we have been over a period of time, so much has been eroded from us in terms of our own sense of self. And just being in an environment that was very loving, in a very deep way, touched me at that particular time, that you are worthy of love. And that began a very deep process, that I am loved by the divine, and I am worthy of that love. And the more that I keep that awareness, the more I begin to see that it gives me the capacity then almost to be more committed to doing things that serve me. But also that when I really serve myself in that deeper sense of really valuing the self, it also enables me to hold the other with deeper respect, and also to do things that brings value for the life of another. So many times we are afraid to give time and care and express aspects of self-love, because we think I may become selfish. But what I have seen, and and I have experienced, that the more I hold myself with that deeper sense of respect and love, the more my capacity grows to be an enabler for others, in a way that I'm not wanting something in return, but I can give the other and offer something to others in a way that enables them to grow into who they need to grow. So I remember something that was once shared, and that is that when you have a big heart, you are able to allow others to grow into their own greatness. It's a small-minded person that makes others feel small. So I find that just giving the space to really taking care of me grows my heart for others as well. And there's no danger of becoming selfish, but actually I become more selfless in what I'm able to offer others as well. So time for the self, quality time for the self, time to reflect, time to spend time in silence, time to do the things that I know lift me and nurture me. So I find for me as a personal practice, it's always the morning meditation that's so key. It's almost like setting myself and putting me first before my day takes over, and creating that quality time to be with the divine so that I can absorb that energy of pure love that then carries me through. So time for silence, time for my meditation, and also to be very committed to make time for reflection. Because I think unless we make time to reflect and allow, a reflection is key, because reflection allows for continuous learning. Reflection on my experiences offers me insights, and those insights allow me for continuous learning. So that also becomes a key process. So those two elements are important. And the third thing that I find that many of us don't give time to, but it's time for play. Doing things I really enjoy doing things with my hands, baking bread, working in the garden, being with nature, working with plants, doing something creative with my hands, whether it's drawing or, during my period of just recuperating from an operation, someone gave me the gift of that diamond art. So that was beautiful. Creating something beautiful that was quiet, that was required, just that kind of being present into what you are doing. So I think, giving ourselves that space as well to create beauty, to enjoy beauty, and to allow our creative expressions. If you like writing, write poetry, but just give yourself that space to generate beauty, because that beauty that you generate reflects back to you of your own sense of beauty as well. So these are some practices that I wanted to share, and I'd like to give a little space for questions or input from others before we end off with a meditation. Okay, anyone, please unmute yourself or write in the chat. Someone is asking for a link. It is on YouTube, so you would get it on our channel. We're live streaming it. Okay.
Shanti. I think that the self-respect needn't make you selfish, needn't make one selfish. It can make one self-sufficient.
Yes. Yeah, nice point. It makes you self-sufficient. And I find that part of it as well, and that's sometimes the other side of the coin that we need to learn as well, is that when I have self-respect, I am self-sufficient, but I also know how to receive. And I find learning how to receive is as important as learning to become self-sufficient. Sometimes we can put ourselves in a bubble and we become afraid of receiving love and care. But I think it's also knowing that when I can hold my own dignity in who I am, and that doesn't change, but I allow that easy flow of energy as well from another. So it becomes a very natural way of receiving and giving, but we hold each other in dignity. Thank you, Anne. Someone else would like to share?
Permission to sister.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. I've sort of discovered in this journey that it is very crucial for ideal self-identity, for discovering who am I and who do I want to be as I develop and grow. And developing my self-image as well. And just realizing who am I, and also picking up the attributes like physical characteristics, personality traits, and how do I perform in social roles, so that at the end of the day, it leaves me with the power of positive energy and coexistence with other people. And self-identity to me is also very important because it strengthens my character. And when I know who am I and where am I going in my future, I then regain confidence in self, and I'm able to identify and emerge as a stronger individual. Secondly, it keeps my uniqueness and distinguishes me from others, but at the same time in a positive ways that leaves me a happy person, that leaves me a person who other people are happy to be with. So truly, we, the Big K family, have discovered a treasure, and I really identify with the notion that BK is a university of human strength. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Maria. You know, what you're talking about, this aspect of self-identity, Daddy used to always, almost every class, she always used to give us 3 questions to always reflect on. Who am I? And really understanding who and what I am all about. Really going to that core of my essence, and it's something that requires continuous reflection, because there's so many layers that we need to release ourselves from, to really get to the purity of that awareness of who I am. And the second question she always used to ask us to reflect on is who I belong to. And that's really the sense of connectedness with the divine, but also in that connectedness, when we recognize our own divinity, it's also connectedness with everyone else as well, in a way that we are one family. And there's a kind of a deep learning and exchange that happens between us. And the third question she always used to ask us is, what is it that I have to do? And sometimes we think of it in terms of my goals in life and my purpose in life. We go into these big questions. But I found it very useful. This third question is that right now, in this moment, what is my response? What is the response that is required of me here. And I found that very useful because, it's that irrespective of the situation, sometimes what it's calling on me is courage. Sometimes it's calling on me to be patient. Sometimes it's calling on me that right now my responsibility here is just to hold a positive attitude and help in creating a positive environment and atmosphere. So this third question of what is it that I am to do and what is it that I must do, it's like coming back to a deeper responsibility. Because many times what happens is in playing our roles, we can get caught up in trying to please people through our roles. But always coming back to what is it that I must do, it's really about not about pleasing, but what is the right thing right now that I need to do? What is the spiritual principle that I need to apply now in doing what I need to do? So I found that very useful to come back to those three questions that Daddy would ask. Bianca has shared that during my dancing classes, I'm in meditation with myself and God, concentration of my movements, and I remember my flow of moving and dancing steps, my feelings of freedom and bliss. Yes, and I think dance is a powerful analogy. When do I step forward and when do I step back? It is allowing that flow to happen, and both are important and necessary. Yeah. Any other thoughts from anyone that would like to share? Whenever I think of empowerment, I'm always reminded of the words of Daddy Janki. And so I'd like to just end with a little quotation from her book, Wings of Soul. Daddy says here, it's how can I overcome feelings of hopelessness? And she's saying that to truly contribute to the process of setting the world right, you need to develop a lot of inner personal power. This is because the path of someone who is trying to do something for the world will always be strewn with obstacles. Not only can there be a complete lack of support for what you are trying to do, but there may even be many who will try to stop you. Often it will be only your faith, courage, and honesty that will enable you to carry on. By faith, I mean the faith that your task cannot fail. If you always remain honest in all of your dealings. So when there is that honesty deeply, ultimately there will be victory. Faith too, that your honesty and strength of conviction is the kind of courage that attracts the help of God. In this way, you will never be alone and are sure to receive the support that you need. So with faith, that step of courage, and with that, you will always attract the help that you need. Also, you need to make your heart strong, make it unbreakable. This requires wisdom, such as the courage to never get disheartened, and also the ability to tolerate everything. Both of these qualities will keep you from feeling hurt, especially the pain of feeling unappreciated when proper recognition for your efforts or contributions is not forthcoming. It is important to protect yourself from this because hurt feelings create a lot of sadness, and sadness of any sort will undermine the inner power already accumulated. So sorrow drains our strength, and so it's very important not to get disheartened because that will drain away our inner strength. So before you know it, all your joy and enthusiasm will have disappeared. A strong heart that knows how to be wise enables you to manage everything easily. Always remember that the basis for complete success is an honest, generous, and clean heart. So that was always Daddy's slogan, that for any level of success you want, it's always that honest heart, honest and clean heart. And really, that honesty and faith in my honesty, in a sense, or conviction within me, is that not to get disheartened, but to know that in the long run, it will attract the right energy and that you will get the help that you need to get. So with those powerful words, I think just to keep as an underlining slogan for oneself for what true empowerment is. Okay. So if there are any thoughts or anything that people would like to share, otherwise I'm going to end it off with a meditation. And so even if you'd like to put something in the chat, please do feel free. But I feel right now is a good time to just consolidate what we've been hearing and reflecting on, and just go into a bit of experience of that inner space. So I'm going to ask you to just take a moment and breathe in deeply. And as you breathe in, just allow yourself to relax and let your body really come into a space of just being still and calm. And in this quiet moment, gently turn inwards. And as you journey inwards into the very core of who you are, feel the serenity of your inner core. I am a living being of light. I am divinely created. And in the stillness, allow yourself to feel the power of your divinity and the power of our divinity, our truth, is peace. When I step into that peace, I feel anchored. Peace stabilizes me in truth. There's no push or pull, but complete stillness of just being light, like a steady flame, being still, like the calm waters of the lake. And from that space of deep stillness, I give birth to creative ideas. I give birth to new ways of being and new ways of responding. I connect with what is truth in every other living being. Because what connects us to each other is this pure thread of peace, of pure love. When we strip away the external differences, we are beings of energy, beings of love, connected in a sacred thread of pure love. And coming back to the essence of the truth of who I am, I feel the self in the completeness of who I am, being held, cherished, and loved by that divine source. And this love, in its purity, is unconditional. And this love is eternal. So holding this awareness, giving the self the space to be absorbed in this pure light. I allow the self to become full, be still. And step out and show up with dignity. For I'm worthy of love. I am a being of love. Om Shanti. So thank you everyone, and if there's any comments or anything anybody would like to add, please do feel free. But it's a big subject that I think needs exploration, but as I said, it requires that continuous reflection on the self and a continuous refinement of really uncovering the layers so that I get back to that essence of who and what I am. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of your evening, and Om Shanti.
take a ride with me to paradise. Heaven's in your heart beating inside. You're alive, the great divine, older than time. You are loved, yes, you are loved, and the stars in our sky, billion-year-old lights light up the sky, and you can feel the universe through your heart, the divine design of you. The time has come for you to honor the miracle of you. And you are so beautiful, the way your body moves and holds it all. Your heart lights up hearts, and your love illuminates our world. Your soul is old, your soul is old, and the stars in our sky, billion-year-old lights light up the sky, and you can feel the universe through your heart, the divine design of you. The time has come for you to honor the miracle of you. Oh, the road's been long, and the heart is strong. Let your love lift you up, let your heart rocket you to honor the miracle